If you're into live looping and could use some inspiration for new techniques, tips and tricks, then this detailed walkthrough is for you. And if you're new to looping, I'll run through some multiple looping scenarios, some of which might apply to your envisioned setup. I'll go through what gear I use, most importantly why it's in my setup, and how it's connected and interacts within the rig. If you're already looping, you may not know some of these settings that minimize problems and prevent catastrophes. They're things most tutorials tend to neglect. I've tried multiple looping setups and different hardware configurations, playing Latin, R&B, rock, pop, and EDM. I've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't, and what processes help streamline your looping. And this can apply to your particular setup to speed up your looping creation while looking and sounding more professional and polished. I've broken it down into chapters for each device type. So if you think you would never use, for example, a bass sidechain compressor, you can skip to the next chapter. Plenty of tips scattered throughout each category and some super critical tips at the end. They come from strategies I've learned through 30 plus years of gigging that will apply to most looping setups and will help give you an edge. This is my most comprehensive breakdown of my ultimate dream live looping rig and exactly how I use it. So let's get into it. Chapter 1. Boss RC505 Mark II Loop Station. This is the master of my rig. This controls stops and starts of all my equipment. It sends out a MIDI clock, which is like a metronome, to the Groovebox, to the sampler, and the synth. Even though there are quite a few other looper options, I love the RC505 Mark II because 1. It's reliable. 2. It's fairly cheap for what it does. 3. Nice big buttons. When you're concentrating on the keys or another instrument, you need to hit them. I usually leave track 1 as a silent 4-beat loop, a ghost metronome, so when I'm turning tracks 2, 3, 4 and 5 off and on, having a track constantly running prevents any jumps in the beat. For example, you need to hit them. Metronome run. Beat doesn't jump ever. So it's a great fail-safe that helps eliminate any chances of missing a millisecond of a beat somewhere in your setup. I always try and keep that running all the time. And just in case what you're hearing is not the actual Boss RC505, my drum machine and my sampler, which are being triggered by the drum machine. The only thing I route into the RC505 is the keyboard and my microphone, which goes via the TC Helicon Perform VE vocal effects. Now, one thing I found super useful is to try and arrange all your looping tracks within groups. The way I have it set up is only my keyboard goes into channel 1 and 2, not the microphone. And channels 3 and 4, I can record my keyboard or vocals. The reason why I do that is that once you start adding tracks on, if there's noise from your microphone spilling in when you're recording keys, so those two only have this going into it. So when I record that, it's a nice clean sound with no background noise. Channel 1 is always available. If I need a 5th channel, I can record onto that as well. And then you've got your incoming and outcoming effects. That's 4 different effects, but you also have banks B, banks C and D. So in essence, you have 16 effects on each input. Really handy for when you want to add some effects. I also have a Boss foot pedal controller. This is set up for me to be able to stop and start if my hands are busy. The audio from my RC505 goes straight to my Zoom mixer. One other trick I learned after hearing myself back on recordings is all my levels were all over the place. So work out how to keep your volume mix consistent in every performance. If you're a guitar-based looper, how do you save settings on your effects board? For keyboard loopers, it's easy. You just save things as a preset. So all your volumes are saved for each song. All audio inputs are calibrated for each song, so the recorded loop is at the right volume with the faders at full. You don't want to be, trying to adjust your mix as you're gigging. You want to keep things simple. The master output, I always try and keep it half. Now, if by accident a volume knob or fader happens to move slightly during the performance or transporting, it's easy to remember where it should be and fix it. I always do a quick physical check before starting a gig oral recording, physically checking volume knobs halfway, faders up all the way, and the same with my other gear, making sure all my knobs and faders are in the right position, making it easy to remember, especially when you have a few instruments like this. And where possible, all connections have 90-degree elbows. I have designed this case with spaces to run the cables down and underneath the hardware. So why 90-degree angle cable connections? Well, A, it leaves more space in between the units to make the rigs more compact. B, less pressure on the connection pods. So if this is sticking out, there's a chance you're going to hit it, cause more friction and damage the cords or the connection pods. And since this layout is very new, I still haven't built the foam framings around. I'm still playing with it, making sure I'm happy with the positions before committing to securing everything in foam cavities. 2. The keyboard controller, my Roland RD-2000 stage piano. Not the ideal keyboard for this style of music, and damn heavy, but it is what I have. How do I use it to create loops? Rather than find each sound as I play them, I set up patches with every sound I need for each song, which I then save as a scene, trying to keep everything I need for the song within the 7 zones of my keys, so I can focus on creating the loops rather than thinking of patch changes from the bass to the synth to the pads to the, you get the idea. And sometimes an external zone, sending out MIDI notes to my harmonizer. Enter in it and plug it in and we begin. The audio from here goes to the loopstation, and any bass guitar, bass synth, sub bass is routed to the sub out of my keys. This goes to the bass sidechain compressor, which I will go into more detail later. How do I remember what patch is for what song? What zone plays what? Each song has a file on my iPad with relevant instructions, i.e. patch settings for all the devices, where to play each part of the song, and any other information I might need to be aware of before starting. Now, I said I use 7 zones, not 8, as I have a second zone that's set to external as well. This one sends a program change to the MC-707. This tells it what drum programs to play, and not yet up and running, but will soon send program changes to the S1 synth from a zone on here as well. So when I'm ready to change to another song, I select a scene and it'll send a MIDI program change to the MC-707 and the S1 as well. Plus, the MC-707 will send a program change to the P-6. These are set to change at the end of the pattern of each device, whether it be a 1-bar loop or a 2-bar loop. This has no impact on the loop station, as there is no MIDI signal going into that, allowing all elements on the loop station to keep playing regardless of what's happening with these devices. That gives me layers from the last track that I'm playing, and then access to new layers from the new tracks to craft DJ style transitions between songs, incorporating old layers with new layers, and go fading in and out, leave one song and start building into the next one. And just like the loop station, I keep the master volume at half. The faders on this don't matter because they're saved as a program change, so every song that I change, the volumes change automatically for the particular song. So whatever I play on my keys and record onto here, the volume should be set to exactly where they need to be. And I'm needing to adjust on a gig my levels to perfectly match. Number 3, my Roland MC-707 Groovebox. Now, some like to route their drum machines through the loop station, but I prefer to keep it separate, so I send the audio signal straight to the mixer. Even though this is a Groovebox, I use it more like a drum machine. The main reason I got this instead of a Roland TR8 drum machine or similar is that it has the pads, which makes it easier to trigger samples on the fly. It also has a lot more options, and the scenes are awesome for changing in between songs. Now, some might argue if you're not making everything up on the spot from scratch, it's not really live looping, it's cheating. But the reason a lot of venues would book a musician playing backing tracks rather than a looper is that watching a looper taking 1 to 2 minutes to build up each song is not very entertaining for most. Getting my drum loops to have all the detail I want takes too long and diminishes the entertainment value. So I switched to pre-made patterns and percussion loops, focusing on creating other elements, with the entertainment value coming from manipulating all these elements while aiming to move through songs as fast as a DJ would. The way I've set up my drum machine allows me to have 64 songs loaded up and ready to go in one single project, which for me is up to 4 hours of continuous beat mixed sets per project. So no waiting on loading up a new project in between a gig. So in terms of audio on this, I've split the audio out into 3 groups. The main output, which is stereo. Number 2, the assignable left. And number 3, the assignable right. Why split the outputs? Well, the MC-707 has a master low pass and high pass filter, which is great for creating variations in the energy of a song, cutting out the kick or the high. This master effect isn't assignable and affects all signal going through the main output. So anything I want to bypass the filter needs to go to the assignable outputs. All audio outputs are routed to the Zoom audio mixer, except for a silent kick on channel 2, which goes out of the assignable right into the bass sidechain compressor. Also, track 2 is the only track where I don't need to change the volume, so I always keep the fader up, meaning that the kick drum sent out to the compressor doesn't change in volume. The track layout that works for me after trying several different combinations is this. Track 1 is drum rolls. This goes to the assignable left output, which goes to my Zoom mixer. Track 2, one shots. Also on track 2, I have a silent kick drum, which is routed to the assignable right. You never hear this when the music is playing, but it's actually triggering the compressor here. I'll explain that in more detail in a following chapter. Another important feature to note about the Groovebox, tracks 3 to 8 have been changed from the default track mode to clip mode. The default factory mode, track patterns, this means that you assign one sound to each sample, and these sounds are shared throughout all of the 16 patterns on each track. However, when you change a track to clip mode, that means that each pattern has its own set of drum sounds. So in theory, there's 16 patterns per track, which means you could have 16 drum kits per track, giving you a total of 128 drum kits, each with their own 16 sounds. The caveat is that you have a memory limit on the sample bank for each project, and it starts filling up quickly once you add 4 beat loops to multiple drum kits. So I try and be thrifty with my loops. Where possible, I cut down any loops to 2 beats, and you can sequence in variations on the clip pattern in the machine, rather than play out a long sample of, say, 4 or 8 bars. Back to my tracks. Track 3. Common percussion loops that I share between songs. Track 4, more common percussion loops to share between songs, but routed to the left assignable output, so it's not affected by the master filter. Tracks 5, 6, 7 and 8 have dedicated drum kits for each song, which go through the main output. Each track can have up to 16 song clips, and these clips can be then saved as scenes, and I can have up to 128 scenes. The other handy feature on each clip is you can save program changes. So when the RD-2000 changes scenes, this new scene sends a program change to the MC-707, and within the scene in the MC-07, I've put a program change in one of the drum kit clips, which sends another program change to the P-6 sampler. Once again, with the master volume, I like to keep it at exactly half, and all the faders are usually set at full, except for track 1, which I use it as I need it. And as mentioned before, 90-degree angle cable connections wherever possible. I see how neat and tidy this is, plus all the space that I have used for something other than cables sticking out of each device. Number 4 is my Empress bass compressor with sidechain compression. It's my latest edition, and I'm still learning how to use it, to be honest, as I have zero audio engineering or music production training and have never used a compressor before. The basic function of the sidechain compressor is when the kick hits, it temporarily reduces the volume of the bass for a split second and then releases the volume back up to the original level. All my bass sounds, bass guitar, bass synths, sub bass come out of the RD-2000 and are routed through its audio sub output into this unit. This is why I have a kick routed through the right hand side assignable output of the MC-707 to here. This helps the kick punch through and limits phasing, which reduces the impact of both the kick and the bass. And if you have any tips to better use this, please let me know in the comments. Once the bass audio signal gets compressed in time with the kick, it's sent into the loop station on the second instrument input. On this device, I am unable to have all the volumes set to full or halfway, as there's a lot going on there. So once I'm satisfied with the settings, I'll place some tape markers on the positions of the knobs, so after transporting the rig, I can check visually if every knob is where it should be or needs resetting. And if you're getting value out of this tutorial, a free and easy way to support me, hit the like button. And if you're feeling extra generous, a subscribe is even more of a help to me. Thanks for your support. Back to it. Number 5, the TC Helicon Perform VE. Vocal effects and 8-voice harmonizer.
Yes, 8 voices.
The main reason I bought this unit was after seeing Jacob Collier in his early days playing his one-man band live looping show. He had a custom-made keyboard rig that could duplicate and harmonize his voice according to what notes he was playing on his keys. After an extensive search, I struggled to find alternative options other than this that could achieve this result.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly.
This would be an awesome tool for me to have, as I could record 3 and 4 part complex vocal harmonies on the go.
Lady, hear me tonight, 'cause my feeling is just so right. As we dance by the moonlight, can't you see you're my delight?
That vocal harmonizer is this unit's best feature. And just duplicates my voice to whatever note I'm playing. It also has some semi-decent reverb, delay, and some other effects I use. Not too bad. But 2 big drawbacks of this unit that I have to live with. 1, the latency is too big for my liking, and you can only save 3 presets, which is very limited. But I do keep it in the rig because the harmonizer is awesome and a massive time saver when stacking vocal harmonies and great for performing live. The microphone XLR cable plugs directly into the back of this, and the processed audio signal is then sent to my loop station in case I want to loop any vocal lines or harmonies before that loop station goes to here. Next up, the Roland P-6 Creative Sampler. This one's pretty simple and one of the cheapest and smallest samplers I could find to start adding and playing with loops. It was important for me to have a sample playback device separate to the Groovebox. Number 1, for longer samples that would otherwise kill the project memory on the Groovebox. Number 2, for the performance aesthetics. For me personally, I don't want every single sound and pattern programmed. It's not very exciting watching someone press only 4 or 5 buttons throughout a whole song. The P6 lets me trigger samples on the fly, while in some songs, selecting a sequence sample pattern automatically triggered from a scene clip change on the MC-707. And these patterns are triggered to stop and start from the loopstation. All stop and start functions and program changes are transmitted via a MIDI connection. These devices use a headphone jack style CV MIDI connection, and it has to be MIDI A protocol. Most cheap cables that you buy online are not. They're MIDI B protocol. I banged my head for about a month trying to figure out why I couldn't get this to respond to the MIDI signals from these devices. I bought a genuine Roland cable and it works straight away. Now, since I can't turn the stop and start MIDI trigger off from the MC-707 at will, going into here, I keep pattern 1 empty. So any song that doesn't need a programmed sample playing on here, I assign MIDI program change to channel 1. So it's playing but it's silent. As for the sample storage capabilities, this only has 8 banks with 6 pads on each one, which equals 64 sample slots with 1 sample for each slot. Though there is a workaround, you can load up multiple samples on one pad as long as they're all the same length and within the 6-second stereo or 12-second mono limit of each slot. You can stretch the time out to 23 seconds in mono at 11 Hz sample rate. Considering how small this unit is and light, they're not bad specs. They've even got a built-in battery that lasts about 3 to 4 hours, and the cheapest thing probably on my rig, and a great introduction to samplers. The audio signal from this is once again routed to the Zoom mixer. And as aforementioned, 90-degree elbow connections wherever possible, just to keep the spaces nice and tight, especially since there's connections on the top. 90-degree angles are a must, especially if you want to put a lid and transport it later. This allows me to transport the sampler in its place, plugged in and ready to rock always. Note that any foam padding on the lid needs to avoid putting pressure on that, as that will damage it easily. Following on with the Roland RS series is the Tweak Synthesizer. That's a mouthful. The Roland S-1. To be honest, I know close to zero about synths. I bought this because I want to learn synthesis, and it's a great entry-level unit with a tiny footprint. I'd like to add synth lines to my tracks with parameters I can tweak as I play. So far I've programmed 1 pattern using one of the preset sounds, and it's a work in process. These patterns will be triggered to stop and start via the loopstation MIDI stop start command, or directly from the device itself, with the program changes triggered from the RD-2000. MIDI connections and audio cabling routing is the same as the previous unit, the P6. Next on the list, the SPD 1-kick percussion and crash pad. The only reason this is in my rig is I bought it as a kick stomp pedal for my piano bar gigs. It's mostly been sitting in the cabinet until I needed an easy access option for a crash when coming out of a drop. And although the MC-707 can do this, I would need to switch to the right track, adding an extra step to reach this sound. The simpler I keep things, the less chance of missing hits. And nothing is easier than having a dedicated pad just for this purpose. It also has some other sounds which can be useful. Plus, it also has 1 slot to input a sound. Audio from this is once again sent to the Zoom mixer. So now we get to the hardest working part of my setup, the Zoom Livetrak L6 sound mixer. This is also a fairly new addition to my rig. I love how small this mixer is, plus it has enough channels on it for all the gear I have. The 3-scene memory is really important and a key reason why I bought this. A device with so many knobs can have one or more of them accidentally move in transport or at a gig. With this mixer, I can determine the best mix in a controlled environment like my studio and then save it as a scene, ready to recall the next time I switch it on. Now, some could argue that you should mix sound to best fit the venue or the venue sound system you're performing, but this is very difficult for a one-man band like myself and probably you. So I optimize my mix for recording. It will sound good enough on any sound system, and most importantly, my videos will sound great, hopefully. And that's what helps me build my profile and get better and higher paying gigs. So when I power up my rig, I press the scene button and all my volumes are exactly where I want them to be. Ready to rock straight away. I do note the master needs to be at a certain position. I have memorized that, and I will be putting a little tape to mark where it should be. And of course, everything has 90-degree elbow connections. This one was a bit of a challenge with so many stereo inputs. I opted for a Rockwall flat 90 cable, and above it, a standard patch cable. Unusual, but it works. And my rig travels with everything plugged in. Once again, make sure the foam on the lid isn't pressing on the connections. The best thing I've added to my rig is the Pioneer RMX-1000 DJ effects unit. Now this thing isn't cheap. I had to save up for a whole year, but it's the best thing you can add to any live looping rig. Everything from the zoom goes into the RMX, as this is the last unit in the audio effects chain. These effects affect the whole mix. This unit adds so many options to the audio signal that helps you keep the sound fresh, varied and interesting. So many live loopers are boring to listen to. It can get repetitive and stale pretty fast. Try affecting a change every 4 bars or at more every 8 bars. This makes it pretty easy. Or maybe if you're recording a long loop, add an effect while you're recording the loop. This section here has some great effects to once again create tension and release and alter the sound, creating more variations in the music. It features a lot of the effects DJ use on their fancy mixers like reverb, echo, bit crusher and spirals. I also like to use the EQ cut to essentially create a new part in the arrangement, and a great tool if you want to mask new elements being introduced. I also love the noise generator, which is great for build-ups. You can use it on its own or combine it with the drum roll. The sampling section is like no other instrument on its own. It's got drums for fills and ornaments. And you can load your own samples.
You're listening to the sounds of a live looping artist, F-Key Piano Man.
I also have the option to make anything in this section pre or post effect, excluding this section from any filters being applied to the incoming mix. And the fact that it's got pitch control on any loop functions is just awesome. The audio from here goes straight to the PA mixer, which this sends signal out to the PA system at the club, my own PA system, or a recording device. Next on the list, the PA mixer. This doesn't have to be very big, enough for a stereo input from your rig, and a couple of extra inputs for background music, or maybe an extra mic for an MC, or you want to add another musician. For the mixer, I highly recommend one that has 3 output options. This one has a left and right stereo XLR out XLR being microphone cables, 2 instrument jacks, left and right or TS, and a headphone output as well. Why do I recommend 3 outputs? One set will go to your speakers or the venue PA. Another set will go to your recording device. Every looper should be recording their sets. Or you might want another monitor speaker to hear yourself, which you can plug out of there as well. And the headphone output works great to plug in your in-ears, or a spare output in case of an emergency where one of your other outputs is not viable, or you've forgotten the cable for the XLR. You can use the headphones as a emergency. For me, the small form and lightweight is a priority, as this can get quite heavy. I also recommend going for a decent brand. If you can afford it, stay away from cheap brands you might find online that cost next to nothing on Amazon or Temu or any of that. I used to have a Behringer in the past, about the same size. It lasted about 4 years before I started having issues. This Yamaha is now 2 years old, going strong. It's a better build quality, quieter as well, less of that hissing noise, which you want to have when you have so many instruments, because each of these instruments has a small noise floor that keeps multiplying as you add more units to the chain. Having volume knobs instead of faders also reduces the issue of dust falling into the faders. The mixer doesn't have a scene recoil, unfortunately, like the Zoom, so I place stickers as markers to remind me of the optimum position for each level. It's only 2 input channels and a master volume that I need here, and as mentioned, 90-degree angles on anything that's staying connected for transportation. You should know why by now. And last on my list, audio field recorder, the Zoom H5. Is carrying an audio recording device really necessary? The best way to improve is to record yourself often. Listen back, take notes of what you can fix or improve. Was that last set a good mix? Maybe the bass was a bit too loud. What settings can you apply and save to lock in the right levels for your next performance? And any musician in this day and age needs good quality demos and videos on your socials, and the audio recording from your phone just doesn't cut it. So what recording device should you get? I tried small phone plug-in devices like the Roland Go, but found it hard to get the right level out of the mixer, especially with a thumping kick and bass heavy music like mine, and not distort. I don't think they're designed to take the input from another PA style mixer. This unit or other similar field audio recorders like Tascam are perfect for this. It's always plugged in, powered up and ready to go with minimal effort. So every time you need high quality audio recordings, you just turn it on, press record, good to go, no sweat. I did promise I'd give some more tips. So what advice would I give beginners or more experienced loopers? One of the most important tips you should strive for in any mobile setup is uniform volume knobs and faders. All faders should be all the way up, and knobs to either full or halfway if the signal is too hot. This serves 2 purposes. Before you start your set, you can do a visual check on all hardware volumes, check everything is where it should be, and if necessary, adjust to your standard settings before you commence your performance or recording. Number 2, some stages and venues will have badly positioned speakers that aren't really in your ear, or a PA with subwoofers which can overpower your monitors, making it almost impossible to mix properly from your position on stage. I had one really bad experience where I was at a festival and underneath the stage there was a row of subwoofers, so everything I was hearing on stage, even with the monitors, was boom, 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 boom. It was very hard to mix my sound, and because I relied on adjusting my volumes, it was really a terrible sound that day. I sweated a lot. Knowing that your mix has been tweaked to just right in a controlled environment like this, it's a bit like mixing and mastering in a studio. You can have the confidence that your set will sound pretty good everywhere with all your faders at full volume, regardless of what you might be hearing behind the stage or in your in-ear monitors, and your recordings will be perfect. Another thing that really speeds up your loop build-ups is to save presets and patches or any functions wherever you can. Anything that's savable, do it, even if it takes a bit more time, and save it per song so that when you change songs, you press a button or 2 hopefully, and everything's ready to go. and you can start looping rather than looking for a particular sound here or there. It makes you look a lot more professional and polished, and it's worth the time it takes to set these things up. Another life-saving must-do is always carry spares of everything you can. Cables will always fail, and with a setup like this, there's almost infinite variations of audio, MIDI, power cables, transformers, and adapters. Build up a collection of adapters so you can Frankenstein almost any connection. Connections for headphone jacks, instrument cables, microphone cables, MIDI connections, and power as well. I actually keep a adjustable voltage transformer in the spare tire compartment in my car if I ever get stuck and I have a transformer die on me, or let's just say you forgot one for some reason somewhere. Keep this bag with you at every gig. You will be using it at some point or another. The other thing I highly recommend is keeping a hum eliminator in your gig bag, especially with so many electrical appliances changed together. Dodgy electricals in older buildings can create an unbearable buzz in your audio that can kill your gig. I did a gig once where there was a buzz in the electrical system. Mind you, this was only a piano gig where I just had a piano and a speaker. It was so bad that the manager asked me to stop playing. The ideal for a rig like this is a power conditioner, but they're not cheap, and I'm hoping to eventually add that to my list. Now, if you want to be a good looper, most important thing, as any musician will tell you, practice, practice, practice. Practice recording your loop setups.
You're listening to the sounds of a live. You're listening to the sounds of a live. You're listening to the sounds of a live looping artist, F-Key Piano Man.
Even the best loopers can stuff up a loop and have to delete and start again. But a looper who can nail almost all build-ups is much more enjoyable to watch and hear than a looper that regularly gets stuck on repeat for a minute redoing parts. Having said that, if the loop isn't right, don't build up a whole song on an out-of-time loop. It has to be close, but also not perfect. Once again, speed is key. Don't be a perfectionist. Another valuable lesson someone once shared with me: when learning the song and deciding the looping arrangement, ask yourself, what is the shortest I can make this loop? A particular song might have an 8-bar rhythmic pattern I need to loop. Let's say it's essentially 4 bars, repeated twice with a tiny variation on bar 8. How much value does that small variation in bar 8 bring to the arrangement versus a quicker build-up of 4 bars and straight into the song? Remember, you're entertaining an audience. Don't bore them with really long loops just to get a small detail. This is one I learned fairly recently, but it's starting to come in handy and can be a lot of fun. Practice cover-up strategies for when your loop goes wrong or you make a mistake. Have a few rhythmic vocal phrases in your tool belt. And practice them. Make a mistake, sound cool and professional. You can do it. Oh no, that's wrong. Let's start it again. Learn to speak in rhythm too. That wasn't great, so it's time for another take. Gonna do it one more time. Let's go. Hey. I think that's enough for one video. Enjoyed this and got value out of it? I would appreciate a like. Share your top looping tips with the community and make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification. If you want to see more, this particular video might be of interest. Thanks all, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.